But the ruling itself is the opposite of judicial conservatism. This is one of the most aggressive, far-reaching rulings you'll ever see. What this judge is purporting to do is to micromanage, really, the day-to-day interactions between essentially the entire executive branch, all these agencies that are listed as defendants, and the leading social media companies. This is a very activist judicial opinion.
The decision will be refined somewhat because government has to have the right to have its own free speech, to push back when they see things on social media they think are dangerous.
It's not as though the FBI has been going in and saying, hey, take down this post, hey, take down this post. That's what they're alleging, but there's just not a lot of evidence to support that. And basically, we've had a situation where some politicians are making any contact between social media companies and the FBI or law enforcement seem problematic in some way. And if you look at the reality, it's like the FBI is not very good at monitoring social media. Just look at what happened on January 6th. There are all of these warning signs, red flags going up all over the place, and they weren't prepared. They didn't do enough. But the idea that the government can't have any communication with these social media companies, I don't think is something as really a world that we would want to live in.
I can't count how many people have emailed or yelled at me that these people aren't communists at all. It makes me laugh. And it does remind me of this wonderful quote I read from time to time. I repeat it from time to time. It says, you don't hate journalists enough. You think you do, but you don't. And the man who authored that quote, Aaron McIntyre, joins me now, has a great show on The Blaze, which I highly recommend. Aaron, they're not even journalists. They're apparatchiks. It's not more complicated than that. They don't even really pretend to be journalists anymore.
I think it's pretty clear to everyone who wants to pay attention that we're living in a media-run state. This is a state, the state and the media are completely, you can't separate them. They work together, they scratch each other's backs. The media drives the state's agenda. The state uses the media as its way to force through different policies that otherwise would be restricted through the Constitution. And now we see the media encouraging the state to do the same thing with big tech, right? We see them taking places like Twitter, places like Facebook, and saying, no, the government has the right to use those private corporations, quote unquote, to go ahead and censor the First Amendment rights of Americans. And we, the protectors of the First Amendment, theoretically, the journalist class, are of course 100% behind it.
Aaron, I've had this argument with many a friend, and I'm not sure which side I fall on, to be honest with you. Who runs who? I've had plenty of friends who say these, quote, journalists, they simply parrot whatever the regime wants them to. The regime sends out the talking points. The journalists dutifully obey. And then I've had other people argue very convincingly it's actually the media who runs the government, that the government does the things the media wants. Who runs who?
I think that the political theorist Curtis Yarvin has the best theory about this. He called it the Cathedral. And what we basically have is a theocratic oligarchy. We don't have one specific head. We don't have one specific king. There isn't a cabal somewhere handing out specific orders. But what we have is a network of different institutions, all of which to hand out prestige and power. And they all share the same value, which is progressivism, is this radical left-leaning ideology. And because that value system is what's perpetuated in all of our institutions, all of our things like universities and media that hand out those kinds of high status opportunities, this is what everyone parrots back. And so what you have is a kind of self-exciting feedback loop where one group tries to push the other further left and the other one tries to outflank them by going further left. And they just get more and more rabid as each one purity spirals them towards the next progressive goal.
Purity spirals is such a great word. Jen Psaki went on TV and had this to say.
It shouldn't come as any surprise that we're in regular touch with social media platforms. We are regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives dangerous to public health.
Aaron, I understand that the answer to this question is almost undoubtedly no, but do you think any of these people, Psaki, Jake Tapper, any of these people who speak like this, do you think they even grasp that they're the bad guy, they're the tyrant, that they're what's wrong?
No, nobody believes they're the bad guy. These people believe that they are doing the Lord's work. They are protecting the plebs from this horrible disinformation. They truly believe this 100%, that without their guidance, without their constant supervision and protection, the entire United States would just descend into some kind of right-wing Taliban state. And they'll say this directly to your face, really, if you let them go long enough. So no, of course they don't see themselves as the bad guys. Yes, they're pro-censorship. Yes, they're for having corporations control the speech of the average citizen. But all of this is due to the highly scientific, technocratic management that they all earned because they have those important college degrees. They're all singing from the same hymn sheet. It's just progressivism.
Joanne Reed, the witty, always sharp as a tack Joanne Reed went on TV and had this to say.
I have to say, I did not go out on July 4th and would not. The idea of going to a mass gathering, a parade, or a big fireworks thing outside seems insane to me, to be blunt, in America, because America is awash with guns, and now people don't just have them. They seem to want to shoot people with them and use them for whatever.
Aaron, explain to me how we're supposed to ever get this country back when a large number of Americans, not just moron Joanne Reed, live in a world entirely of make-believe. Am I supposed to step into that world of make-believe with them? If so, how deep am I supposed to step? What am I supposed to do with that person?
Yeah, this is unfortunately a very difficult question for those who are still pretty invested in the idea of the marketplace of ideas and winsome arguments that pull people across the aisle and unite the United States. It's becoming very clear that there is just a complete conflict of moral visions here, that there are two worldviews that simply cannot coincide. And when that is the case, of course, you now move to a very different strategy. That's why each side is working their hardest to kind of grab what's left of the middle, because they understand they're never going to actually compel the majority of the United States to kind of go along with what they're doing. And this is also why you see each side constantly framing every election in existential terms, because turning over the vast apparatus of the United States government to someone who completely disagrees with you on everything when it comes to your worldview and your morality becomes increasingly dangerous. Neither side wants to do it.
Are you tired of watching your beloved nation fall prey to the insidious grip of communism? The Anti-Communist Manifesto by Jesse Kelly is the ultimate guide to fighting back against this destructive force. Discover the shocking truth about communism infiltrating our education system, corporations, and even environmental movements. Unmask the true agenda behind groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and learn how to protect the United States from the most malicious enemy. With extensive documentation of past atrocities, you'll see the undeniable danger posed by this ideology. Arm yourself with knowledge and join the fight to preserve the American way of life. The Anti-Communist Manifesto, a new must-read book from Jesse Kelly. Get your copy today at jessekellybook.com or wherever books are sold.